Everyone's talking about, I know you're very active in the Far East and in China, for example, there's been an estimated last year 111 billion yuan spent on luxury goods, according to Bain & Co. So everyone's talking about the hype in the Far East. Do you think for Aston Martin that that's important and more so than, for example, further growth in the US? Do you think the US has sort of had its day like the rest of potentially the rest of the Western world?
Again, last question first. I don't think the US had its days. Absolutely not. And particularly not for Aston Martin. We're still a very unknown brand in the US of what I've just described. Personally, driving up, was it in Dallas, I think in October, onto a gas station with an Aston, a DBS. At the pump, and people come around and they admire the beauty of the car, but they have no clue who we are. You're only cool, or you're only selling cars in terms of what they stand for, the status and the power of the status it represents, if your broader social context appreciates on who you are as a brand and what that car actually is, right?
Yeah.
So that we're still lacking in the US. And for us, there's tremendous opportunity still in the US to capture much more of the market. Despite all the growth and all the economic news of it's all happening over in the Far East, it's not only. Of course, the Far East is very important for us. And in terms of finding foot, particularly on distribution and brand development, that goes at a very rapid pace. And I'm convinced that in the next 5 years, we'll probably see an equal volume coming out of the Far East, including China, as we see now of the UK or the US, for instance.
Yeah.
But so strategic growth markets, China, very important for us, of course, but equally, no, the US hasn't gone out of breath. Not at all. There's a lot to gain for us still there.
Yeah. So
anything out of the UK, essentially, for us is still a lot to gain.
That's right. So an expanding brand in a sort of a mature market is still a big opportunity for you. There's
very
no
much
question.
big opportunity. Big challenge, of course, in an established market.
Yeah.
But big opportunity. Yes.
If we can just talk about China and go to where the hype is, just for a moment. What, with your experience, you're obviously being global marketing director, is your experience in China in terms of doing business well in China? Another big question, but just from your experience, I mean, I know that Dr. Jörg Bez, your CEO, spends quite a lot of time out there. Is that important? And is there any other lessons you think that you've learned so far about doing business well in China?
Yeah, China's everywhere else. I think if there's one key to take away, it's find the key ingredient to translate, and that crosses and transcends geographical distances and cultures as well. There are a few, and if you have them in your brand core, I think you're very well off. For us, it's passion. Clearly, the passion in automotive and the passion in racing, the passion in beautiful cars. It's a common denominator, and friends and colleagues in China share this just as much as someone in the US will share it or someone here in the UK. And you start to model around that. Now, the value sets these people bring to the table, different consumers, different minds, different tastes, is critically important. So, of course, we have a brand model that we developed that at the core captures the essence, but allows itself to lend and take into account cultural sensitivities and contexts. And we're doing exactly that, to tailor that, to fine-tune, shall I say, that brand model and how we translate which values. History, for instance, and luxury over racing credentials in the UK or continental Europe. Racing credentials is incredibly important because it builds performance credentials for our road cars. In China, luxury craftsmanship and the notion of, wow, British brand, 100 years old, is probably more powerful.